as it stands.
Jonathan Young.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I think acknowledging the work of the previous government in commencing this work is important, and also the work of the Honourable Simon Power and now the work of the Honourable Craig Foss. It's great, Mr. Speaker, that we can cooperate across the House as we can cooperate across the Tasman. And we all want to work for the success of New Zealanders and Australasians in a world that is incredibly competitive and increasingly so. As I note in my first reading speech, we here in New Zealand, we are a small trading nation. We export 85% of what we produce, so it's imperative that we have very good relationships, understandings and regulations agreed to by our trading partners in order for us to have a level playing field. That's, I think, what most people, if not all people in commerce, look for is a level playing field. They want to have certainty. They want to know that if they can apply their resources, their hard work, their capital, that they have every chance of success. And we know that through the FTAs that we're seeing developed, that this is the sort of playing field that we want to create for New Zealand enterprise. Because one thing that we are certain of, that we are an innovative nation. We are a nation of people who are hard working with great ideas and with endeavours that can bring great success to this country. So this bill, which was introduced in September 2008 and was adopted by this government and carried forward because it is very much part of our agenda on focusing on improving access for our exporters to world markets. Mr. Speaker, the Commerce Commission International Cooperation and Fees Bill, it amends a number of Acts of Parliament: the Commerce Act 1986, the Credit Contracts and Consumer Finance Act 2003 and the Fair Trading Act 1986. And it seeks to authorise the Commission to share information with equivalent overseas agencies about unfair trading practices and, as the other previous speaker mentioned, about anti-competitive behaviour. This bill is part of the National-led government's focus on improving access for our exporters to world markets. Boosting innovation and improving export access is one of the key policy drivers for the ongoing rebalancing of the New Zealand economic performance that we seek to see happen. And, Mr. Speaker, it's known by all that only by lifting economic performance can we create the jobs, boost the incomes, improve the living standards and provide the world-class public services that Kiwi families need. And so this bill, though the intricacies and the mechanics of it may not be understood by many New Zealanders, the benefits of it will be. The benefits will flow through greater success in our companies. We understand that the single economic market is a development which is important to the economies of both New Zealand and Australia. Under the single economic market concept, both governments have been intensifying efforts to remove regulatory barriers to trans-Tasman trade. It was back in 2009 that both Prime Ministers, our Prime Minister John Key and then the Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, agreed on the imperative for continued strong and coordinated international action to restore confidence in global economic growth there in the midst of the global financial crisis. But that same commitment, Mr. Speaker, has been continued with the Right Honourable Julia Gillard. It was just over a year ago that a new investment protocol under CER trade agreement was signed between both Prime Ministers. And I do just quote what Bill English, our Minister of Finance, said regarding that. He said, "New Zealand and Australia have one of the most open bilateral economic and trade relationships of any two countries. This relationship is underpinned by CER, which is the oldest and most comprehensive set of trade access arrangements that either country enjoys." He said Australia is both the single largest source of direct foreign investment in New Zealand and is also the largest overseas destination for New Zealand investment. So in many regards, we are joined with common necessity, but also common aspiration, that this corner of the world would continue to succeed and be prosperous. And so it's recognised that strengthened trans-Tasman economic integration, including through the Single Economic Market Work Programme, is vital for both. Mr. Speaker, we are the third best place in the world to do business, according to the World Bank's estimations. But for that business success to be optimised, easy access to overseas markets is paramount for our country. With 85% of our products manufactured going to export markets, it's imperative that we have this easy access and that we have regulation that's harmonised to the very best of our ability, so that we create a level playing field for our enterprises here in New Zealand. And so we are committed to this process, very much so. We need to offer a better policy environment if we are to overcome the economic disadvantages that our country has. Being small in size is one of them. Our geographical isolation is another. And if we want to attract and retain increasingly mobile talent that can go anywhere in the world, but we want them to stay here and retain this. We want to retain their skills here. If we want to retain and encourage and invite capital, technology and entrepreneurship, then, Mr. Speaker, a better policy environment is what this government determines and desires to provide to businesses in New Zealand. And so regulatory reform is very much improving that, and this bill goes towards that as well, to create that environment where New Zealand companies can have a presence in the Australian market, and where the ease of business for them there is as easy as it is here. And, Mr. Speaker, that is where we want to head with the harmonisation of our commerce laws. And, Mr. Speaker, I believe that this bill, which has been progressed by the previous government under Leanne Dalzell, and also under the leadership of Honourable Simon Power, and now under the leadership of the Honourable Craig Foss, is moving us very well and positively in that direction. And I commend this bill to the House.
Claire Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.